TST Roundtable today, October the 25th. We have a bunch of things we'll be yakking about tonight. Some new leasing programs on some OTC equipment, about batteries and the auto data book here. You have to code them in a car. We have Jeff here from ProCut. We'll be talking about rotors. Drury from Astoria 2000 with boots and CV axle stuff. And Pierre?
All right,
what else are we going to be yakking about?
Okay, we have a few other subjects that we kind of dreamt up, but you can add whatever you want.
I don't dream of this stuff, Pierre. I'm sorry. You may be dreaming.
I probably am.
Okay.
Maybe I'm sleepwalking.
But we better tell them.
One subject will be, what do you do to avoid getting air into Ford power steering systems when you're turning the wheels by hand with the engine off, like doing a brake job? And we'll talk about that. Actually, we could spread out on other problems with power steering if we want to. Somebody asked, what the heck are those crazy weights on exhaust systems? What's that about? We can talk about that. And he was asking if they're really necessary.
That's like parachutes to slow you down, I heard. You know?
That's correct. And you don't need one if you don't fall out of that airplane or off that cliff or whatever.
That's it.
Number 4. It's one person who wrote this, says, I really like our vacuum bleeder, but I'm having trouble getting bubbles out of the stream. How do you avoid that? We'll talk about that. Actually, he asked about what do you do about seeing under dashboards when your eyes go a little buggy and you have bifocals and you can't
That
see.
means when you're old like us.
Yeah.
So that's
friggin' old guy. There was a question about a VW Jetta with a 2-liter and an idle surge, throttle by wire issues. We could talk about that. Batteries and battery testers, AGMs and so forth, the need to register batteries with cars that have power management systems.
And of course, anything that you guys want to speak out about out there. So
yeah, whatever comes
anything
to
that's
mind.
on your mind.
Tools, jobs, strategies. How do you do things?
Problems.
What do you like? What do you don't like? And whatever. Yeah.
And on that line, thinking of saving money and saving time, let's talk about some CV axles and boots. So I know from past experience where we had Natalie who worked for us out here. Natalie's car, she lives in Wisconsin, some nasty winters. She had some broken boots on her Subaru. And I have to say, these boots held up quite well, didn't come apart, didn't break, no problems, and not that issue of you buy a reman axle a lot of times. It's worse than the one you had in there.
A lot of vibration.
A lot of vibration.
So it was really a worn out axle with a new boot and some paint on it.
So before we get to Drury, I know you use this tool as well,
Yes,
right?
often.
Okay.
It's a very valuable tool to me. A lot of times you don't want to change that whole axle because you are scared about the vibration problems with some higher-end cars. I've been to manufacturers before, remanufacturers that actually repair these axles. I've seen what they have to do to repair them. And you always question yourself, is that thing going to be right?
Yeah.
Okay, and they're talking about higher end cars, Mercedes, Volkswagen, Audi, BMW, where everything is concerned about vibrations, a customer complaint coming back to you.
And they notch them and weight some of these. Some have weights on there or notches to balance them out. You get the one from XYZ Rebuilder, it's not the same ballgame, is it?
So if you catch the car fast enough, you maintain this car, you catch it quick enough, you see the boot ripped, you replace it with a better quality boot than you ever see out in the market.
And the grease, the clamps,
yes.
Pretty nice setup. And Craig, you're back there.
Yeah.
You use this in your shop, car clinic, so Dimna Clinic over there, whatever Eric's name of the place, or Euro, right? Euro, so, remember, we're real people here, so these guys actually use it.
I guess my comment would be this. It comes with the grease, the clamps, the boot, obviously, and I don't sell it as, oh, this customer's too cheap to do an axle, so let me do a boot for like $100 or something. I personally sell boots by book time and all data, which is more than an axle would be, and I sell to the customer as a higher quality job. Because again, you're maintaining an axle that if you bought it from the dealer is $500, $700, $400. What's your alternative? You have the rebuilt one that's $49.95. Why is it $49.95? You have the Chinese one that's like $60. Why is it $60? What's the difference of machining in China compared to
metal quality.
the OEM axle? So really, the OEM axle is never gonna go bad as long as the boot is maintained. So this is really the only way to do it. I know guys that use the glue boots that are split, but I heard those don't last very long.
No, those are scary. Years
Back in the
tried
80s,
them.
in your time, right, they had a cone or something.
My-
So,
Your time, back in the dark ages.
I mean, this is the only, like, these stretch, you know, they stretch and the
Oh,
tool's like
I'm gonna make a
200 bucks.
Kugolini out of that. You know what a Kugolini is? We can put
What's
it on my
that?
head.
Uh,
Yeah,
the
stretch
tool,
it.
the tool, it stretches the boot. If, you know, you're real crazy, you could do it right on the car. You could do it pulled out of the car.
Yeah,
Personally,
we've done it on the car.
when we have a boot that's just an outer boot, we'll do it right on the car, and you save a lot of time, and it's good labor time. But I find the inner boots, because you don't want to get dirt in there and stuff, we often pull the axle out. So it depends what you want to do, but in my opinion, it's a way to make more profit and actually have less comebacks, because I've had not a single comeback using those boots.
No, they really hold up.
He also does the inner tie rod boot as well, which most people are probably unaware of. It's hard to find a boot from a manufacturer or quick enough. If you have them right inside, it fits. How many percentage of the cars are out there?
99.
99%. I mean, a lot of times you see that you do.
So that's on the rack.
It's on the rack.
That's on the
It's
rack,
the
yeah.
rack, and that will actually stretch. It could go around
Oh, yeah.
the inner, or the outer tire end. So
Using the
it's-
same tool?
Yeah.
Yep.
You can use the tool, or you just take this,
The
put
cut.
it over the
it's like
outer
a-
tire rod, and
That comes right in the
Separated from
box,
the knuckle.
too. So it's all in the box.
it goes right over. You lubricate, goes right over, and it does not affect the alignment of the car.
Yeah, it's a profit maker, period.
So instead of turning around and saying, seeing a boot that's bad and saying, well, let's wait until the axle goes and sell them an axle or whatever.
That's the whole idea.
Right.
And crap boots a bit.
As long as the axle, you know, the whole idea of any of these things is obviously the thing underneath, whether it's the CV joint or the tie rod end, has to be good to start with. But as long,
Right.
usually
Oh,
the
yeah.
boots are going bad and the dirt hasn't really gotten in there yet, or you know, you can
Well, they
clean it
try-
out,
they-
re-grease
they
it,
try
put
to
it
As long
around
as you
the
catch it early enough.
Right, if you hear clicking,
It's done.
it's
Too
done.
late.
That's too late.
Yeah, then it's done.
Then you can get, you know, a new end and,
In prep.
yeah, and pray it's good.
But at
So
that
Jory,
time,
why don't you tell us a little bit about the boots? Like, you know, how many part numbers do you have?
basically have two part numbers, small shaft, large shaft, and there's cut downs over here on this one and this one. We just came out with a new boot. We call it the Camry style. It's the same size as the FB 3001 large shaft, without this little piece over here, so it's a nice cleaner fit for a lot of cars like Camrys. That's basically, we have one other number that fits on the ATVs and mini cars, which in the right market is a huge,
I've used them.
Oh, this guy's Mr.
Yeah.
Outdoorsman. with,
Yeah, I don't want-
yeah, he's used them, let me tell you.
Well, 'cause you look through
Well,
them.
I actually have a friend of mine that does a lot of ATV work, and he swears by them now. Once he saw one, used one once, he's like, wow, what do I get, you know, where I get these, and obviously I stock up on them so you can see them and use them. Because for him to go out to a ATV store and buy them, you gotta wait, I don't know how long to get the part. It's not available such as easy as it is in the automotive field. So time down for him is a big issue. And they are more pliable, so if you hit a tree or, you know, branches.
Not if,
that's
you
what
mean
you're doing,
when.
Yeah, they're a lot more flexible, so they actually.
Yeah, very flexible with it, seriously. Now, so let me get this straight, Jory, so everyone understands out there. You got basically for vehicles, 3 part numbers, 3 that you could cut down and fit just about on
99% of the cars.
90-something% of the cars. The tool is pretty easy, air operated,
Yes.
slides over, it's really user-friendly, works quite easily.
I want to add
Do
to
they
that,
understand how this, if we had air, these goes over, opens up, and this will actually fit on a Hummer? This size.
Oh,
So
that's
this will
what-
open up wide enough, there's an adjustment in the back, how far you want to open it up. And it's a beautiful one tool, big money maker.
Yeah, definitely saves time, saves money. Great.
So
minimal
both
investment.
ways it goes on there, because a lot of times people aren't aware of it. You go the small end first.
Oh yeah, if you want to do an inner boot,
Very good.
instead of going in this way, for the outer boot, it opens up and slides right over. You just put it in this way,
Scrunch it up.
Goes over the outer boot, over the outer joint,
And goes right in.
slides over, and goes right
And for
over.
some of you out there that are don't have experience with this, I can tell you that opens up quite well. You may look back to a webcast we did. It's one of our TST top tools. I don't know if it was a year or two ago,
About
maybe
a
2
year
years
and a half
ago.
yeah, right.
You may want to look at that and see that we actually demoed it and it works quite well.
Not only that, but a lot of four-wheel drive axles or drive shafts are using CV side boots like that, and I've used them for that as well.
But, you know, if you keep your eyes open, boots crack, especially this time of year, winter, and
Sure.
the average age of the car now is up in the US with the economy being bad. This is a moneymaker.
And
Should be part of your winter checks.
Yes,
We're
definitely.
selling preventative maintenance here.
Yep.
There's so few things to do on the cars today preventatively. Guy comes in for an oil change, check the boots.
If you
make
see any
something
kind
up.
of cracks on it, it's coming.
And you know the old thing, if you don't look, you can't sell. You gotta look, do a check,
And upsell is everything, isn't it?
name of the game. And you're doing a customer a service. This is not ripping anyone off, because if the boot does crack and we get dirt in there for too long of a period of
They're
time,
buying a half shaft.
the half shaft is definitely, you need it. There's no two ways. When you hear, as we said, the clicking, it's all done and over with.
In my business, I use a camera often to sell a boot job and show them the cracks that are there is key. If they don't see it, they'll think you're ripping it off, to a point.
And people love show and tell, but something like a CB boot's full of
Yeah.
pretty nasty looking grease and they don't necessarily want to see it. Cameras are better for that.
Digital camera, good thing to have in your shop, and I think now you don't even need that with PDAs. My
Yeah.
PDA has an 8 megapixel camera. I mean, that's pretty awesome. I think you can shoot it, email it to yourself or the customer, and take it from there.
It's the best tool to upsell.
Yeah, no
Period.
doubt. Anything else, George, you'd like to add before we move on to
The
one
only
of
thing
our?
the only thing I'd like to say is that we've taken a job with this simple tool and just two part numbers. We've taken a job that nobody wanted to do in the past because it was unprofitable. And we've made it into a profitable situation because now you're doing a job that used to take an hour to 2 hours,
If you could separate them.
if you could do it.
Yeah.
And now we're doing it in 20 to 30 minutes, and you charge as necessary. You could either use a menu pricing,
Sure.
or you can charge
Or the book labor.
by the book labor. And I think if you look and do preventative maintenance on these cars, maybe one of the most profitable tools you have in your shop.
You know, the other thing it brings up, a very good management guy, Vin Waterhouse, always said, if you have something in stock and you don't have to wait for it, time is money. And when you have your rack tied up because you're waiting for parts delivery, you got 3 part numbers, even if you just kept 2 part numbers there, this fits 90-something% of the cars.
Yeah, how many times
Time
have
is
you-
money. And by the way, our business is time. It's all based off.
How many times have you had a wrong part?
Hmm.
Now you're waiting another 30, 40 minutes.
Well, if a guy comes in with the
Or
left
days.
side axle bad because it's clicking, this may not be able to fix the problem.
No.
Right.
But while you're waiting for the parts store to deliver the left side,
You can sell the right.
sell the right side, and you're making yourself another $75, $80, $100 while
And
you're
they're all-
waiting
and
while the
they're
lift is
feeling
tight.
more.
They're feeling the pain from the one that went too far.
That's right, and there's a perfect opportunity to
More
say,
likely to go for it.
this one was broken, if you don't do this other side, this is gonna be broken, and you'll be spending,
This is why you broke, because it ripped. This one is about to rip, same age, same time.
They go in pairs.
very good. Okay, let's change up to, let's talk about this OTC thing before we get on to a couple of more things. OTC has a new leasing program, and this new leasing program, whether you're a shop owner or a technician, for their, any tool they make actually. This here happens to be $175 a month, interest-free, 24 months, and you own a full-blown Pegasus with 2 years, I think, updates for free. So you want to check that out, or their what's this called here? This is like the Genesis, but some other name because I'm blind. Genesis Evo for $178 a month with 24 months. And again, whether you're a technician or a shop owner, that is some good stuff. Comes with all their software, European, Asian, domestic, something you need. You know, good bang for the buck. One of the things I always said about OTC, nothing to take away from Snap-on, but now you got something you can pay on time, and for the price that you're paying, you got a very good diagnostic tool, Pathfinder, and Identifix built in, pretty damn good tool.
By the way, we've done scan tool shootouts in the past, and you may want to look that up, but the OTC products have scored well repeatedly.
Yeah, I think when we did the Nissan one,
Yeah, they've done well
They've
on
done very well.
a variety of
So-
brands of cars. They've had a really wide spread of models and makes that they could handle and handle well.
So for less than $50 a month, you could have a scan tool that's this well.
Brand new with software updates.
How many cars can you fix
$50
for less than
No.
$50? I mean, $50 a week, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, it's 4 times that.
Eric, sign me up. I want to buy one.
You know what I'm
So
saying?
this is a-
That's
this is-
the way I look at it.
178, right, 178, and you got TPMS to boot.
It's a lease-to-own program.
Yes,
Lease
yes,
to
it's
own,
your,
right,
it's your,
right.
it's your tool.
Lease-to-own.
When you pay the last dollar on it,
It's yours.
So that's pretty interesting. Let's flip it up while we're going over that. Let's talk about batteries and coding. This auto data book, also sold by OTC here, not an OTC commercial tonight, but some stuff we decided to talk about. And again, a webcast that you can see on P10. I devoted quite a few minutes to this on that particular webcast. Coding. And Pierre, why don't you talk about this, your favorite car, a BMW, and tell people what happens
I don't
when
need
you
the book for
replace the
this.
battery.
Basically,
He's walking BMW, you don't need the
That's
book.
it.
He wrote
Sure.
that page.
He wrote-
basically on all the, well, no, but all modern cars that have power management, that have basically a computer controlling how the charging system operates and how the electricity is distributed through the car, are sensitive to charging voltages and battery condition. And on BMW, which I know very well, obviously, they want you to, on all these cars that have this power management system, they want you to register a new battery with the car so it can update and change the way it charges that battery and not overcharge it. It's looking at internal battery resistance, and it wants to control. It's not just worried about controlling voltage in the car. It's controlling the rate of charge so it doesn't cook, for example, AGM batteries, absorbent glass mat batteries, which are very sensitive to overcharging. And it wants to make sure that the electrical system doesn't get spiked, surged, or anything like that, because a lot of these computers are sensitive to it.
So Pierre, what you're saying here, like Dibna works on a lot of Volkswagens, they're another company that uses management.
That's correct. They've gotten into charge power management systems as well.
Yeah, so Volkswagen, Audi, Volvo, Mercedes, and the Asians to follow soon with their glass mats.
Eventually, every car out there is going to have power management technology in them.
Yeah. And this book, by the way, is a very, very good book because it'll tell you not only what you have to do with the battery to program it, but it'll tell you certain precautions before or after, things you have to do with a sunroof, or maybe other components on the
Initializing
car.
basic settings, whatever you want to call it. Things that lose their minds and have to be reprogrammed or reinitialized.
Or coded, as we
Or
said.
coded in, right.
Okay,
So
so,
in a nutshell, that book is almost like having a reset light for your oil service light. pretty much.
Yeah,
Today's
yeah.
day and age, I mean, if you don't have a book to reset the light, how long does it take you to figure it out?
and if your scan tool doesn't code, you know, you can look at even when we change the TPMS sensor. Do we need to code it? Yeah, we need to tell the car that we're putting this other particular piece
So
in
some
it.
cars learn fast.
Yes, some have fast
Some cars-
learning, some don't.
Mhm.
But coding is gonna be something, when Dave Hobbs, we just had our TST that you may wanna take a look at. Our last month was on reprogramming and coding. That one unfortunately wasn't free, it's a paid one. But you can find out a whole bunch of stuff about reprogramming and coding.
They also use the system to tell you if there's any potential problems that are coming up.
Correct.
And
Correct.
by the way, not to get too far off topic here, but the fact is, you should be aware of things like these power management systems because you may have a car come into your shop that has problems. Car comes in and the heater's not working.
Oh, yeah.
You start chasing the heater down without checking charge system or codes related to power management, you may find that what you really have is an alternator or a voltage drop problem between the alternator and the battery. The power management system sees a problem with power and it starts turning things off for you,
Yes. Don't worry.
uncommanded by the control head or whatever.
Right.
And it's doing it to save power for critical functions like engine, tranny, ABS brakes, airbags, things that it needs to keep running.
And that's why when you code these batteries, it's looking for specific information off that battery. If it's not the right battery, the computer system may not operate the correct way.
Yeah.
So these are things, this book, by the way, it's not only, we've discussed European cars here, but this book has everything from a GM to Ford, Toyota, everything. So there's real good information. I mean, any page you turn, if I go on a Jeep here, it tells you before disconnecting. It says ensure vehicle interior is unoccupied. Switch ignition off. Wait 1 minute after disconnecting the battery before doing any work on the vehicle. You know, they'll give you things, electric windows, alarms, what to do. So a lot of good information in this from Auto Data, and also sold through OTC or Mac Tools or
Every
Macgo or
Any
any of those
manufacturer's
guys.
got their own different way of doing
Yeah.
things. And if you don't know that different way, you gotta look it up.
You better look it up somewhere, whether
That's
you're
why-
doing it here, whether you're going to the manufacturer's website or buying manufacturer information from whatever source.
Yeah, you gotta RTFB, read the frickin' book, because you can't, how are you gonna memorize all that stuff? And that's just on batteries.
Yeah.
How are you gonna memorize that? It's impossible.
You can't.
So all data, you know,
Even
is
for
your
a
friend.
smart guy like Jerry, you know, he can't even remember.
I can't remember. I just gotta remember, I gotta drive to Massachusetts in a half hour.
And
That's all I could remember.
You've got an electrical problem with the car after you've changed the battery, then it's very possible that you've gotta look that up. You gotta find out what's going
You
on.
missed the procedure.
You missed something.
Or if it's a hybrid, you put in the wrong battery.
Oh, Christmas.
Yeah, big time problem.
Very, or use the wrong charger.
The bottom line though is you may not see the problem right away, you may cause damage.
Yeah.
So it's really better to get the information first, follow the procedure first.
Right.
You know, and we were talking about electrical differences, including battery charges. You know, when Craig just brought up the hybrid, I know a fleet that ruined all their Prius batteries from using the wrong battery charger, because that used an AGM that has a power management setup. And it does become Christmas on that car,
Oh, yeah.
meaning dash lights and DTCs
And melt
will
the
come
battery.
on,
Let the smoke out.
and the battery's gone. Now you need a new one. Our cost $130 some odd dollars. That's a lot of money when someone screws up. Excuse me, can do potential damage. So, you know, the right battery charger, the right information, all of these things, the right scan tools, all pretty critical. Okay, let's switch it up to a different subject unless Craig has some, okay? Now, this here, a flyer on ProCut. ProCut, in case you guys don't know, and Jeff will give you a little more insight on this in a few minutes, is used by a lot of OEs to make sure that rotor that you bought, and we will all ask opinions here, Eric runs a shop, and so does Neil. A lot of people will throw a rotor on a car because now they're so cheap. Made in China, 25 bucks or so or less, you could put a rotor. I remember your vehicle with lousy rotors.
Oh, they were hopping.
They were hopping super bad. Unfortunately, you can go on with your story in a little bit. But, you know, to get them true, and how many guys, are you using a dial indicator out there to see how out of round these rotors are? This is not your father's Oldsmobile anymore. That's why they're not in business, I guess. You know, one of the reasons these car companies are not around. But, you know, the hub itself could be bad, right? And I know everyone always tries to clean them down, but the product itself is pretty bad. You can refer back to a webcast we did. I think we had a sound issue back then, Craig, right? The ProCut one we did on the
Yes.
car.
Mhm.
But we'll be doing one in the future. And I got to tell you, it's really amazing when you start miking these rotors and you do run out on them. It's ungodly. The tricks they pull, by the way, the thickness of the rotor. Okay, they'll put spaces in between. Yeah, the rotor's the same height as the OE rotor, but in between, they put bigger spaces and the steel's less. So it heats up, and the rotor quality is definitely not good. So let's talk about what we do to actually do something. Varney, take a seat somewhere. What do you currently do? Let's start with Craig. Craig, why don't you give us some of your experience with rotors you get in, because you mic them and check them for out of round. And you can even mention brands, what you think, maybe a good brand,
So
a bad
I
brand.
could throw companies under the bus?
Under the bus, because remember, we're about helping technicians, not that we want to badmouth companies, but maybe they'll make them a little better.
Well, I don't have a scientifically significant sample rotors, just whatever I buy. And I'll say this, If you buy Aimco rotors, which would be from CarQuest or Napa, if you buy Auto Part International rotors, I don't know who makes those, but we actually weighed them and they were half a pound less than.
We actually
than,
did this. Again, all on that
Centrics
webcast.
We've measured Centrics. In fact, we've had a comeback with a vehicle with Centric rotors, and out of Palengas, which are an Italian brand, the only rotor companies I like from experience, if you want cheap, is PBR, which is they make a lot of, they are the OE for certain brake calipers and stuff, but they're big on Whirlpack, if you're a Whirlpack shop. And Zimmerman's, if it's a German
Of
car,
course, and it's good quality.
and Asian cars.
Brambos.
Yeah, Brembos.
Brembos are made in China,
Oh, are they now?
and and they're cheap. And that's the thing, you're gonna get what you pay for. If it's cheap,
It used to be top line.
I have,
Yeah.
I have good luck with Brembo.
It
I'm
depends
sorry?
on,
I have good luck with
depends on which one
Brembo.
you
I'm the
buy.
same when we put the dial indicator on it.
Yeah.
It's the only, it's like I said, if it's a Zimmerman or it's a PBR, we don't even bother the dial indicator anymore.
How about those Napas made in Italy? Those were good.
Those are Napa Ultra Premium.
Those are
Um,
very
best,
hard to
aren't they?
get from.
They're hard, well, it depends, because you don't know who they're reboxing.
Yeah,
you
you're
know?
right, you're right,
I've had Ultra Premiums made in Italy, but all the others I ever had were China.
But they were good.
That the OE rear rotors on a Jeep Liberty are Bosch and they're made in China, you know?
Yeah.
So you get a
I
lot of
know.
that.
My vehicle, the front's in Canada, right from the dealer. The
Ford
back in
Motorcraft
China.
rotors are made in China
Yeah.
generally.
Oh, that must be his vehicle.
Maybe,
And so, to be honest, Subaru is big with dealer Subaru rotors will come warped. Very popular with that. And one of my customers always went to the dealer and she had warped rotors and she had rotors from the Subaru dealer. And notwithstanding, certain dealers might use aftermarket parts when they're not
No,
supposed
just
to.
a few of them, right?
Yeah, you know, I just ran into that not long ago, but when it comes down to it, more parts made in China, they can't machine everything properly, and you're throwing the dice.
And the metallurgy is not always.
So what do you do to correct these issues where pads don't wear down as quick
Well-
and better stopping, less noise?
Well, it's really the customers, they never say, oh, you put on organic pads in my car and they don't stop as good. The customer doesn't seem to care. It's squeaking and it's shaking. That's what the customer cares about. And as far as I know, the only thing you could really do is lay the rotors, because that's what, let's say, the Ford dealer in town has to have. It's a Pro Cut
Right,
brake
we have
lathe.
Lenny right over here at Park Ford, they have.
And Brewster Honda has a Pro Cut brake lathe. And the reason they have it is they have to have it. It's the only way to correct warped rotors. There's no other way.
Are these new rotors are put on?
Yeah.
Or these are old rotors that are just getting
Well,
rid
either one.
Yeah, they're old.
Either one. Like, for
Either one.
example,
But new ones are bad out of the box. Again, when we checked a bunch of these, it's scary. You know, they'll go 4,000s or more, and you'll be like,
Now, I'll say
God.
this, sometimes the rotors were manufactured right and were beat up in shipping.
that's right, drop like
And
there's no
that's why
tomorrow.
I've for decades, I have not put,
Yes.
right, drop
You
shipping
pay for
is
that.
right. Drop shipped is right. For decades, I have not put rotors on a car without dialing them. I dial indicate them. I have a set of, the cars I work on have
Wait a
wheel
second.
bolts, not studs.
I thought we
So
already.
I have a
had
set
this
of flywheel bolts. We didn't get into, yeah,
This
I
sounds
won't get into the
familiar.
whole brake job.
Right.
Don't worry, that'll take 2 hours, so we'll get.
I just
I
wanna
have
make that
flywheel
clear.
bolts to bolt the rotor onto the hub, so I can spin it.
Do you torque it?
Yeah.
Stop it, Eric. You know he torques it.
He's talking about it now.
Well, that's something to talk about.
They don't know that.
He's got a spectrum.
I torque them up just like you're gonna do when you put that rotor on for good.
So let's move, Craig, when you use the Pro Cut,
Yeah.
how long does it actually take? And what has been your experience with someone new using it? And then we'll go to customer satisfaction.
Okay, in my opinion, in reality, if you want to really do a tire real quick, you can smack it out in like 10 minutes, 8 minutes, something like that. But in reality, when people, aren't trying to prove something, or maybe we have cameras all over the place, so we're always working very hard, right?
I got you on my PDA.
But other than that, it's, in my opinion, it's legitimately a 40-minute process. If you, when you set up, make sure you did it right. Some rotors, brand new, are so warped from CarQuest, from Napa, that you're cutting them twice when you're using 5/1000ths of an inch cut.
Because that's
on
how
each
far
side.
off they are.
So
Terrible.
so you might say, oh well, it's all fine and dandy. I love the rotors I buy. Maybe 1 out of 10 of your cars come back shaking. 5 out of 20 come back shaking or something like that. It's when you start cutting rotors and you see how warped they are, you start understanding why you need to be cutting rotors. I will not sell a car with Chinese brake rotors without cutting them.
And when you talk about 40 minutes, you're talking 40 minutes for both sides, obviously.
Yes, not per side.
And
Per axle.
you're matching these
No,
rotors,
both axles.
both sides. Front, what do you mean
Like
axle?
if I'm doing front
Front,
axles.
front or rear.
Okay.
Right, 2 sides, front or rear, and axle, correct.
Right.
So when you're doing this, you're matching these up.
Mhm.
Now the rotor, some come a little thicker, as we know, than the others. You now have these things managed down to the right size. And what would you say about the finish on the rotors using the Pro Cut?
It's not like when you get a new rotor, it looks like it's like the cross cutting.
Swirl, yeah.
It looks fancy.
That's
it
a
looks
drill.
Cool. A brake lathe, it looks cool. It's kind of funny. It looks brand new, but if you look at the edges, it's like all rusty because it's an old rotor. But pretty much, it's a good finish.
Yeah, you can
No
make the
problem
finish
with it.
whatever you want by
Yeah.
speed.
Yeah.
And you also do a cross hatch with the tool as well.
No, actually we don't. One of the unique features of the Pro Cut is
If you don't mind if I interrupt, Eric, you're standing in the camera's way. They can't see
Alright.
it.
That's okay. The adapter that you hook the machine to,
Yes.
the hole in the center of that adapter that you're actually drawing the machine into with the drawbar, is actually slightly off center. And the reason for that is when you're actually using the machine, we eliminate all lateral runout, of course, with the computerized compensation. But we leave a little radial motion so that we have a little bit of a scrub
I
cut,
gotcha.
what I call a scrub cut.
So it doesn't act like a screw.
So you actually don't need to hit it with the the ball hone or whatever afterwards to put the crosshatch in it. That's really a result. That's sort of old school from bench lathes that cut
Right.
straight out, and you have that
You have a
continuous
screw.
spiral, and you basically that sets up a harmonic.
Yeah.
As you're well aware of, that sounds like a 747
Yeah.
landing. So really, we've already eliminated that, and that's that's part of the process of cutting with Pro Cut. If I can elaborate a little bit on the rest of it too. I mean, we've done a very similar thing, and it's on if I can point people to our YouTube site, Pro Cut
Sure.
USA. I did a similar thing. I called it a brake lab test, where we ordered 3 pairs of rotors randomly from 3 different parts houses. And to your point earlier, we actually use a stopwatch. We time them because there's some studies that have been done. It's about a 45-minute average waiting for parts. So that's something we consider because if the rotor's turnable, if it's thick enough, that's going to save you some time there. You can get right to the job. But also we found every one of the 6 rotors that we purchased were out of spec. We're at about 5 to 6 thousandths of lateral runout, which at this point our machine is designed to come in at 1 thousandths or less. That's the factory preset on it. Right now the only manufacturer that's below 1 thousandths is Nissan, and we happen to be the only lathe that is approved by them because of our accuracy.
I think, Jeff, not to interrupt you, but years back, I had a different front or disc brake lathe on the car, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest problems why my guys hated using it was always setting it up
Yeah, it
to
takes
get
a
the
while.
run
It's a
out.
pain in the neck.
Can I mention a name?
Well, you can, but, to me, sometimes it'd be a problem. Mention any name you
Well, I
want.
use Quickway.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you
The
guess.
caliper mount style.
Yeah, and it takes a while.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a pain in the butt.
This is a piece of cake to set up. Like Jeff said, the computer run out right here. And again, you can look at their YouTube site or the one we did. This run out right here, it compensates and it tells you when you're in the game. So it really takes a lot of the guesswork out. Like Jeff mentioned, you don't have the problem with the wreck-it type coming out. The finish is good. But I think the proof is the last part of the question I asked Craig. You know, customer satisfaction, comebacks. You know, I know a lot of guys throw new rotors on because they can get them for 20 bucks, but they have issues with customer satisfaction. So what has been your experience with, have customers come back, complain that, hey, my brakes don't stop good, I hear a noise, or, and of course, it all depends on pads you're using as well, but.
Well, before I answer that, I'm just wondering, Pierre, the Volkswagen dealer brakes, do you have any idea how many of those come back? And you're dealing with dealer rotors, so the answer
I
is
haven't
no.
seen any, I've been
Yeah.
there about a year.
They're not
No.
very.
And that's, you know, just to add to that, the German rotors and the German hubs specifically,
Very
they're
true.
made to a much
Now,
higher
let me say
standard.
this, I've busted chops since I've been there about making sure there's no corrosion or other problems with the hubs. If somebody takes rotors off and reinstalls them, I make sure they clean off the inside.
Index.
So-
They index them. But, you know, I've been busting their chops about this since day one. If you're not careful about these details, this is true of any car, it's not just
No.
VW, Audi, or whatever, it's, you know, if your surface isn't flat, your rotor is not gonna be in plane with
And
the,
torquing is
with the
a huge
bearing.
step.
And
Okay.
torquing wheels.
Absolutely.
That's what ruins a lot of hubs when they.
Yeah,
use
absolutely.
with
Yeah,
250
yeah, yeah.
pounds Foot pressure,
Yeah.
pounds per square inch.
If folks already have, you know, we sold over 40,000 of these things, so obviously, as you pointed out before, you know, predominantly when we started out, we were in dealers, you know, and we are the most approved, most required on-car brake lathe for the OEs. But as we're, you know, heading into the aftermarket a little bit more now, you know, some of the guys aren't familiar with it or whatever, we have specific training as well on our website. There's an
Yep,
e-learning
good stuff.
piece on ours that I wrote a couple of years back, but it's still appropriate. And we talk about torque, and we talk about, you know, we talk about sanding and washing the rotor with soap and water and not using brake clean.
Like
Yeah.
an engine, like an engine block, right?
What's that?
They say soap motor's key.
Yeah,
not brake.
absolutely key, because the brake clean just dries too quickly,
Yeah.
and it lodges all of the brake part,
Yeah. It was
machine
Stuff.
particles.
Stays
Yeah,
right.
all the stuff in
They
there.
hit the brakes once, take the pad off, you see the material.
Yeah, so if you're thinking brake noise, cleaning, washing, and even though we do put, you know, like I said, a non-directional finish on.
It's like an
when we
orbital
cut-
finish.
Yeah, I still use a block sander and 150 grit, and I do a minute aside when I'm done. And because, you know, everything, the research I've seen, and I don't know what you guys have seen, but in the field, you can't get it too smooth. It's nearly
No,
impossible.
you want a mirror finish pretty much.
Yeah, you want to get it as smooth as you can. 30 seconds or a minute on each side with 150 grit on a block sand will actually improve the RA, the roughness average, by
Right.
about 20 to 25%,
That's
believe it or
huge.
not. And that is huge. It
How
could
do-
be the difference between a noise, brake noise going out the door, and.
Like a
Yeah.
Volvo.
Mhm.
You give it
Yeah,
holy
like-
water for a Volvo. 'Cause those things
Now,
are noise.
now mind you,
plus.
the rotors are half the picture, you still have to have high-quality brake pads. It's a whole nother subject, but you gotta have high-quality brake pads, and that's different for each make and model of car.
Well, Eric, how many, like, when you use aftermarket rotors, how many are you have shaking comebacks on?
Depends on what I'm using for, what car I'm working on. If I'm working on a European car, I'm using Zimmerman, I'm using a better quality. 'Cause
Or a
I know
factory
it's
rotor.
coming back, there's no question about it. But if I have a cheap customer, a cheap car, they don't wanna spend any money, I tell them it's either the cheap way or the right way. That's it, and it's their decision at that point. And I give them all options, so it might vibrate, it might not vibrate, I could spend more time cutting the rotor, it's about time.
So you pre-sell them the idea that it'll vibrate if they don't spend the money on the right.
I'm educating the
repair.
customer, period, in that spot. If I don't do that, I'm done for it. It's my name, my money. Because now I'm buying the rotors, the better rotors for them to make them happy. But if I make them aware of it, then it's their choice.
Cool.
So you have to. My question to you is, what do you think about torque sticks?
Yeah. It's funny, well, it's interesting, we used to, I'm gonna admit something, we were the original seller of Torque Stick, the Torque Stick brand, believe it or not. And we've pretty much gotten out of them, to be quite honest, because most people have gone back to using a torque wrench. You know, they're still out there, and I guess in major tire chains and things, it's better than not using it.
Than just gunning it.
But most of them are not
but-
used correctly is the
But
issue.
Yeah.
to be quite honest, the way I do it in our shop, at our training center, is I'll use the lowest value for that stud size, or that nut size, you know, say a 65 foot-pound on
Because you know it's gonna be
19mm.
over.
And then I'm gonna drop the car down and I'm gonna
And
hit
do
it.
it.
That's what I
So
do.
I'm
I've
gonna
been
do
doing that.
two-stage
Yeah.
and then bring it into it when I put it on the ground.
That's
Okay.
probably
Because
smart.
your air pressure and your.
Yeah,
Oh, and your gun you use.
I have a low setting that's only about 40, 50
Yeah,
foot
touch
pounds.
and then go.
And not only
Yeah.
that, put your hand on it, changes the torque.
Oh,
Yeah.
People have extensions on a gun, changes the torque. The more you extend some, just like a regular torque wrench.
So the guy at this end of the shop is getting different pressure.
Oh,
too.
no doubt.
Yeah, that's
Too
why,
many
that's why I asked the
variables.
question.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a cluster. One last thing before we move on, Jeff. You and I were discussing Napa had some sort of a deal on,
Yeah, well, you showed this, we'll talk our brands. We're
This was
now
a CarQuest
available in the
flyer,
aftermarket.
but-
Yep, CarQuest, and we're also available through Napa. This quarter, Napa's doing basically they do an earn back program. So if they can get some folks to buy more parts from them, they'll make the payment on the brake lathe. So that.
so is it for a limited time? I think you said, what was the number that people had to buy in parts?
It is dependent on, it's based on the lease payment. So for instance, if the lease payment were around $250 a month, which would be kind of typical on our product for a 60-month period, for a complete setup,
Right.
you would somewhere, you would need to buy around 10 times that. But it's, every store is a little different, and they'd have to check with their local
Okay.
Pro Cut or Napa rep. But it's a pretty neat deal because they're probably buying the parts anyway. They can get this machine, and the last plug I'm going to make, and I'll shut up, is that the rotor matching service marketing materials that we sell now. For so many years we were all about fixing a problem for the OEs, and that's why we're required by them. Now we need to look at. We were talking earlier about the upsell opportunity on this kit from Astoria. We also have an opportunity too. We're doing something that eventually it can't do. We're matching it to the hub of the vehicle. And therein, whenever you do something new and different, as you guys know, and shops are looking for new services, therein is an opportunity.
Right.
So we have a lot of shops now charging for a rotor matching service as an individual line item on the menu.
So this is like Hunter Road Force balancing.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Compared
for
to-
rotors, right,
Yeah.
compared
You
to
know,
regular
bubble
balancing.
balance.
Yes, and every machine that's
Yeah.
sold, every one of
It's a
our
difference.
machines
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
sold now comes with a complete marketing kit. I think I gave you the little rotor mod.
Yeah, the little rotor, yeah.
The counter
Yeah, yeah.
mat. So
Yeah.
it comes with some supplies and some training, all the training materials for service advisors, the counter people, the shop manager, how to get it set up, and the technicians, of course.
And by the way, that is key, that goes to all different tool companies. Return on investment. Unfortunately, we've talked about cleaning products, for intake cleans and so on. We'll talk on that Volkswagen a little bit about. But one of the things that the aftermarket is bad at, unlike the chain stores, is actually capitalizing on what they have. They buy a tool, if you can't market it and sell it, it's worthless. It could be the greatest tool in the world, but if there's not the return on that investment, proper marketing, and unfortunately, aftermarket shops need more of that. This is where I'd recommend going to one of the management things from Napa, CarQuest. My buddy Vin Waterhouse there does the best job, in my opinion. Mick Schneider. You need management, and you need to know how to sell. This is they have a great kit, this is a great tool, and it's something that brakes are the most important thing on a car. You need to stop the car. The way Adam Varney drives, it's crazy. Don't want to
He
be
needs
near
bigger
one of
brakes,
those.
more
He needs bigger brakes. He needs bigger brakes.
Some rotors are pretty cheap in the market, but if you're talking about a K2500 truck, if you're talking a bigger truck, it's huge money when you're talking about rotors.
Yeah, and the cost of cast iron, a lot of people have been talking about the prices coming down, but the resources are going away, and the prices will tend to go back up again as the
Right.
resources are used up, and we all know China's using resources, pretty quick.
At a
That's
tremendous
alarming
rate.
rate.
Absolutely.
We have no more L's to take down in the city.
So how big of
Yeah.
a rotor is tool is still?
We now have machines and adapters to do medium duty. I'm doing international 4700s.
Wow.
And, Ford F-750s. And
Yeah, I see you got a couple of big
Yeah.
kits here, again, in a CarQuest flyer or a Napa, whatever you want to get it from, or I'm sure they'll sell it direct to you.
And to give a more direct answer, those are like 15.5-inch. Machines are capable of about a 17.5-inch rotor.
Because that's where I see a lot of big sales are, for a bigger unit.
they're so expensive. You
I do
can,
fleets, and
Yep.
I know it's either a change your order, replace it, and some of these rotors don't wanna come off.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'll do another car.
And we have a larger machine that's even in the flyer. that-
right, the bigger one I've seen, the
There's
new
a
ones
big
you
one.
guys came out with, yeah.
Yeah,
It's way
so-
bigger. Good. Okay, so let's move on, Pierre, why don't you go down the list, maybe hit Neil's Volkswagen,
Okay, we can do
thing
that.
first.
Neil had a, well, maybe you can tell us about it.
I had a customer come in about a month ago with idle surge, and I cleaned the throttle plate and reset the light, and it was good for a month, and it came back a month later with a high idle. And I was talking to Pierre about it, and Pierre gave me a suggestion to do an adaptive relearn.
Yeah, and also on this is a, you know, I don't know how many other brands have sensitivities to this, but the Volkswagen Audis have tremendous sensitivity to their electrical connectors. They get weak with age, or somebody pulls them off and they get spread a little bit, they get corrosion in them, whatever.
Vibration.
Okay,
A
so
vibration of
let's stop you
chemicals
there.
through them.
Let's stop you
You
there
have
and
to make
talk
sure the
about,
connections are good.
right, let's talk about how do you know the connections are good? What tests should they do on these connectors?
The first thing that you would really want to do is pull the connector off, visually inspect it for any kind of corrosion or contamination. There's a pull test where you have a
Terminal retention test is what they got.
terminal
Or
retention test.
drag test?
A drag test where you put a spade in a you know in a pin, or like a regular spade end type of connector, and you pull it out. It has to have enough resistance to you pulling it out to indicate that it has the clamping force to make the electrical connection reliable.
And that's very good, especially those seem to have issues with that spreading.
Right, they do. Now also Volkswagen on a lot of, they do it a lot with coolant sensors and other stuff. They want to see the gold-plated terminals now on these. So if you have problems with any kind of corrosion, you should be changing those wire ends with the plated ones.
Who's selling the gold-plated ones? Maybe Rich, you've seen some ends out there.
Yeah.
You know anyone
Usually
selling?
it's OE.
I only get it, I only know about the dealer.
OE, but OE.
Just
Worldpac does make gold-plated ones as well. You just gotta know what you're buying.
Yeah, I don't think they make them, but it's
They
just
just
all.
sell 'em.
Oh, they
sell
sell them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Worldpac has done a great job with, you know, selling a lot of the OE stuff.
If you have any connection problem on a Volkswagen Audi, the first thing you should really do is scan the car. You scan the car, it's gonna tell you any kind of opening, shorts, to a point,
To a point is right, yeah.
okay?
You're looking for codes that are related. If you have something like a throttle code, you're definitely looking at the throttle. The best way to measure signal from something like a throttle, that is the return signal from its TPS,
Right.
would be at the computer.
No doubt. Best stuff.
That's, the computer is what determines everything. What the computer sees is reality.
But what I think, what Eric's bringing up here with an open or a circuit that's not good, OBD, any
Will-
of these
will
things
flag
OBD
it.
two,
Right.
will flag an open circuit. So, I mean, it doesn't hurt to look there, the old Ford wiggle test, wiggle, jerk, feel, and massage, shake stuff around, see if anything comes up. And let's say nothing comes up, because we talked about the drag. Let's say the drag is good.
All
What is the next thing you want to do to, maybe we got a voltage drop there. What would you use to clean that voltage drop?
To check the voltage drop, I would be, if you don't have a breakout box, I'd be, which most people don't, I would be back probing the connectors. They're weather packed. You have to be careful. Don't cross pins or break the stuff from the back,
Well, the smoke comes out.
or the smoke comes out, but you're not damaging, you don't want to put holes in wires or anything like that. And you're checking for power, ground, and signal.
Now, let's say we have a voltage drop here. What do you use to clean up these voltage drops?
If the connector is not damaged in some way where I have to replace it,
Correct.
I use a, I don't even think they have this anymore, they have something like it. I use a contact oil from Worth, dry that off, and then I use Stabilant. I love Stabilant. SL5, what's the other name?
CE1 from that bad.
Yeah, they have different names for it.
Stable
Great
22.
stuff. Stabilant 22, that's it.
Liquid Volkswagen deal.
Liquid gold, very
Yeah,
expensive.
Volkswagen sells it. You know when the dealer has it.
BMW sells it.
It's definitely an
All the
issue.
manufacturers have it that have electrical.
Mazda had a big recall, gave one bottle for every car.
And it's a little bottle like this for, depending on who you go to, $60 to $90.
Yeah, the days of $40, and that was a lot. Here's 1 ounce.
They used to sell you
1 ounce.
touch-up paint, now they sell you connector and the answer.
Bottom line is,
Yeah.
if it's a connector issue, not some wiring issue, not a throttle issue or a sensor issue, SL5 is fantastic stuff. It increases the conductivity through the connector while increasing the dielectric, the resistance across connectors, away from it.
Yeah.
Makes it more reliable.
Good stuff, way better than electric clean or any of that type of stuff
Yeah.
out there. Now, get back to his problem, we gave them some
Okay.
info.
So the bottom line is, I would be checking for power, I would be checking for ground. Not too many ground problems, I don't think, on these throttles, but you always want to check it. And I'd be looking for the signal back as well, because and those all of those signals back should be checked at the engine computer. Now, I'm spoiled at this job, we have breakout boxes. It makes life a lot easier. You know,
Although sometimes you clean stuff up by
sometimes,
disconnecting.
well, but if you do that and you put stapling on it, you still fix the car.
Well, that's true. That's true, but a
You
lot of
still fix
times,
the car.
you
But-
unplug and you can't find the
It's
problem,
always
you just
good to
fix it.
find it before you take it,
Yeah,
look for it before you take it
it would be
apart.
nice to do that, but unfortunately in Volkswagens, the ones I'm talking about, except for the very newest ones, they bury these computers in no man's land, under the windshields or,
Well,
or
it's the same
worse.
with the Mercedes and Beamers, the boxes on
Yeah,
the
yeah, they
side,
love to stick,
they're all upside down.
they love to stick them in places you can't
Sure.
reach.
Tough.
And so there's no way to really test that without disturbing it anyhow. You know, you're not gonna get there. Bottom line is, test it where the computer is and look for system integrity. I mean, if something has a 5-volt reference, it better be 5 volts, and I mean 5.01 down to 4.99.
It better be right.
It better be
in there,
5
yeah.
volts. Grounds, on a sensor or something like that, you want to have a really, really low voltage drop, and you really want just a few hundredths, thousandths of a volt of
Okay.
voltage drop. You
So
want
they,
nothing.
they get the voltage drop stuff, and they could always look at some of our other ones we did for TSD, all on voltage drop. But
Right.
let's get to the root of his problem here. He has this surging issue. Let's give them some things that can cause this surging issue. This is with drive-by-wire, no throttle going to
You
it.
had an EPC light on that, right? EPC on Volkswagen means there's a problem with the engine control or some system that is not emissions related. So it has a drivability issue in this case. It is not going to cause excess emissions. The gas pedal is not going to cause excess emissions. You really, at that point, want to go to the computer, scope, not with a meter, with a scope, the signals from the gas pedal. Make sure they're reliable first. You should have a
And
gas pedal code if there's a problem.
Right,
Yes, that's
and
what
those
my
are
check
redundant sensor
And the
values.
redundant sensors on that,
One up, one down,
no, I think
No.
on the pedal, that's on the throttle.
on the throttle.
On the
Right.
pedal, they go up 50%. One goes up half of the other one. Right?
Yes.
Eric knows this stuff inside out. He'll tell me if I'm full of it.
No, no.
On the throttle, they go inverse.
Right.
And the sum of those, 5 volts on 03, right, you said? I think they're all 5 volts,
5
right? The newer stuff, some of them are 3 volts.
What I do is
Gone through
I
both.
graph both bits, one from the throttle and one from the,
Right, and
So
make
the
sure.
gas, but one's the pedal, one's the throttle.
and if you're getting excessive code, like, you clear it, you're getting the code right back, obviously you have a glitch in it. So a lot of times it comes up to intermittent fault. So obviously it gets warm, it gets jiggled, with the connector, if you have intermittent, it's usually a connector issue, start there.
Right.
But that code really gives you a good direction of what to look for and where to go. When in doubt, if it's a hard fault, graph them, you usually find it that way.
Okay, so let's say you graph them and everything, what's the thing he needs to do?
He needs to look for a correlation between the gas pedal and what the throttle's actually doing.
Okay,
So you
so,
have to be
One of
sure.
them's dropping them.
Yeah, somebody's gonna be dropping out.
Yeah,
Somebody's
somebody
gonna
has
be out
to,
of
right.
whack. And my experience is, it's never the computer. Do not replace the computer for this. It
and
is
by the
not
way,
Now
the
for
computer.
surging.
Sure, we need to program it.
what's the default on this? Because with all,
Limp-home mode is, I don't know,
Very good.
5%, 10, 12, it's
You're getting
almost
to know it.
idle. It's a hair above idle.
Yeah,
in other words,
just get
it'll
into your
get you
bag.
home. And this,
You just moved the car.
by the way, this is no different than heavy-duty truck when they're
No.
doing stuff with Cummins and all that. It's the same principle.
Right.
You know, they don't want this thing going out of control, so they get it cut back and give you a percentage where you can drive this vehicle
Yeah.
to a safe area. Be it slow, but at least get you.
Now, I forgot to mention one thing. You have to make sure that the actual throttle is not physically choked with carbon or something
Yeah.
first. I mean, that's kind of a basic thing.
That's always
You have to check the
checking it out.
condition first, and
not opening it from the outside.
you have to look to make sure you don't have some other kind of air leak.
That's
You
what I
usually
was
won't-
gonna say.
Because
Check
Higher
your
than-
obviously,
engine
if it's not
system
going
first.
through the throttle,
Well, you
this
won't
whole
act-
discussion of throttles doesn't matter.
A lot of times you won't get electrical fault though.
Right, if you have an electrical fault code, a throttle code, is generally a throttle problem on these. They code very well.
Yes, they're very anal.
Yeah, they're
Now,
they're
talking
crazy
about
it.
if someone overcleaned this is problems not only in Volkswagen, Audis, Nissans are
I haven't really
a
seen
bear, and Infinities, but if you clean up with chemical type of cleaning,
and it gets into the sensor electrical part of the throttle,
You're screwed.
you're done.
you're buying a new one.
So, let's say this happens, or you had to unplug it, or the battery went dead, or someone disconnected the battery. What do they need to do, Eric?
They need to readapt the throttle.
They need to readapt the throttle. Very, very important, because a lot of these people never look at their scan tools, whether it be Snap-on, OTC, factory, whatever. Adaptations are important to get this thing back idling and going through the full range.
Not only
Because it's
adapting
gonna
the
look at-
throttle, if you have automatic, you have to adapt the automatic transmission as well.
Which in basic settings Volkswagen land means 60 in basic settings is the idle stop, 63 is the wide open throttle.
So knows your
Position.
kickdown is.
And I
Yeah,
know
so it knows where
on,
kickdown is.
I know on Volkswagens for a fact that if it needs a throttle relearn, all right, it will not operate the AC compressor.
See, that's interesting.
No, I didn't know that either.
I didn't realize that.
Well, you gotta remember, when it's in some sort of a limp or not
Yeah,
working.
It has to compensate for
It has to
compressor load
compensate.
with the throttle.
That's
And it
right.
can't do it because it's not inspected.
And there's an actual
TSB?
TSB on that says that if it needs a relearn on the throttle, all right, it will not activate the AC clutch.
No, I didn't know that.
And there's
didn't
so
either,
many,
thank
again, this is where looking stuff up.
Something new.
Check
First-
for movements on
Well,
this?
your tool
by the way?
forces you to go through the whole thing anyways.
I,
The factory.
well, yeah, I started to, I didn't finish today.
And what are you using for a tool on that?
I used the OTC on it.
Oh, okay. Oh, the
Your
launch,
tool
that's right, you
forces
said,
to go
The launch
reset
didn't give me any
monitors
codes.
okay, launch
The
the
small
at
launch.
the end of it.
small launch is
It
what
doesn't force you, but it
depends.
gives you the
The
option.
notebook?
Yes.
Or
Right, yeah.
The
No
factory
automatic
tool, what
intervention.
Adam was saying is the factory tool allows you to run all the monitors, including basic settings like
Readiness.
throttle, readiness.
Well, so does the aftermarket tools, you
all-
don't
yeah,
need the
so
factory.
Automatically, once
After
you're
you
doing,
worked out a test plan, it automatically.
it
walks
automatically
you through
offers it to you, do you
every
wanna do it
single
now?
car.
Set readiness, right,
That's how
set
much you have
readiness.
every single car. Right.
Bad things.
Which is a nice feature actually, because you can do it in your parking lot most of the time.
And when monitors are set, we know we're gonna find the problem, because everyone's looking, right?
Yeah.
A great thing that hopefully down the road, all companies would set monitors.
Right.
We have a couple of minutes left, so
Yeah, yeah,
we
we
need
didn't
something
get to all our
relatively
subjects.
quick.
By the way, Craig, maybe you wanna check if there's any other questions about
I
anything?
just checked,
Oh, you did. All right. The question was, a quick item. What the heck are those half-pound weights? They're a lot more than a half a pound hanging on exhaust pipes. And the answer is very simple. They're trying to get rid of harmonic vibrations to make the thing smoother. And they're doing it on suspension members, and they're doing it on exhaust systems, and
Noise.
I know of a car that has it on the battery tray.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
E36 convertible BMW.
Of course, those BMWs.
They have cowl shake on the convertible.
Do they have one in
The
the
batteries
seat
in
for
the
your
back.
butt?
Yeah,
In
they
case you have
probably
gas?
will add
That's
that
just
now.
for alignment.
And they have an anti-vibration battery, a special battery, and they have a harmonic damper on a battery tray.
And by the way, to
Germans,
reduce
you know.
noise, look at air conditioning systems with baffles on it. A similar type of
Yeah,
setup for noise and vibration.
noise and vibration.
So those things to look out for.
Well, that's what H-pipes are actually designed for.
Yeah,
The
to
H
balance
pipe
it
is
out.
To balance it out, and that's exactly what they're doing, instead of making an H-pipe for a V6 or V8.
But this is not just for noise, like
No,
exhaust noise, this is for the actual
Exhaust
harmonics, the
vibrating.
engine shaking.
you get rid of
From
your
the whole,
Yeah.
Very good. Well, hey, we thank you for tuning in. I'd like to thank Jory and Jeff for coming out, and we always invite all your comments. Remember, you can email us at info@tstseminars.org. Give us your comments. Thank you for giving us your comments on YouTube. This will be replayed multiple times by many, many people. So if you're interested in a particular subject matter, something you'd like us to cover, please email us, and we'll see you next month on the roundtable. We do have coming up, in fact, next month, our TST starts the 7th?
Yeah,
Does anyone remember the date?
The first full week of
First full
November.
week, I think it is the 7th. Monday up in Auburn, Massachusetts. Tuesday in Southbury, Connecticut. Wednesday in Totowa, New Jersey. Thursday here live in Mahopac, New York, as well as simulcast all over the world. And we'd like to see all our friends on from different countries as well as here in the great USA. So with that said, thank you for attending, and good night from TST.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Zap it.